Last year, for a grade in social studies, I did an extra credit project on flash floods in Arizona. I didn't remember all of it, but I did remember writing that lots of people died in flash floods because desert washes didn't look like riverbeds at all. They were a little lower than the area around them, but they were completely dry. Suddenly, heavy rain came, and in practically no time, the dry washes were raging rivers strong enough to uproot trees. People's cars even got stuck and sank, forcing the people to try to swim in a fast river or drown in their cars. Robbie, I'm just going to go outside for a minute. How come? It's starting to rain. You're going to get all wet, and then Mommy. He stopped himself. I knew what he was going to say, that Mom would be mad. Boy, did I ever wish she was there to yell at us right then. I was not going to tell Robbie that I was trying to check and see if we were in a desert wash. So I just said, yeah, think about it, Rob. We've been so hot all day. Wouldn't the rain feel good? Robbie smiled. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? We opened our doors and got out of the car. To tell you the truth, the whole desert looked pretty flat as far as I could see. Of course, I'd never really seen a desert wash, so I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I didn't think we were in one. Besides, I didn't think it was going to matter. The rain was barely coming down. The drops were so few and far between that the ground didn't even look wet. So much for enough rain to make a flood. Then suddenly there was the most enormous blast in the sky. It sounded like a million guns all being shot at the same time. Robbie opened the door and dived back into the car. I stood frozen to the spot, wondering what terrible thing was happening now. Maybe the kidnappers were nearby, bombing stuff. Then I realized I had heard that sound before. It had just never been so fierce or loud in the city. Heart pounding, I opened the door to the car and looked at Robbie curled down on the seat. It was just thunder, I said, as if I'd known all along that the sound was no big deal. Oh, yeah, I knew that. Robbie sat up and tried to match my tone. I just felt like getting in the car, that's all. I looked at him and smiled. He shrugged and grinned back. A wedge of lightning followed by another blast of thunder started quite a show. We rolled down the car windows and we could feel the temperature drop. It felt so good. The desert darkness of heavy clouds made the lightning flashes something to watch. Like our own laser show, huh, Robbie? I said in awe. Yeah, definitely better than the show at the planetarium that Mom took us to. Okay, Sky, I commanded. Let's have a bright chunk of lightning over there. And I pointed. Almost on cue, the lightning struck, and Robbie and I both laughed. Hey, let me try. Robbie shouted out the window. All right, Thunder, listen up. I want the next blast when I say 3. 1, 2. A loud blast of thunder filled the air. When it subsided, Robbie shouted, Hey, can't you follow directions? You were supposed to make noise after I counted to 3, not 2. We both laughed. There was still almost no rain, and the wind had died down too. We passed time by trying to conduct the lightning storm. Sometimes it seemed as if the lightning and thunder were following our exact directions, and others, as if nature was paying no attention to our commands at all. Hey, Robbie said, after he seemed to get the lightning and thunder to follow him exactly. Maybe I'll grow up to have a rock group, and I'll call it Lightning Power. My group will be real famous, and we'll have laser stuff just like this behind us on stage. People will wait in line for tickets to our concerts for practically forever. I thought you wanted to be a pro baseball player, I said. Yeah, I do, but I could be a rock star in the off season. Right. Maybe your group could do pregame shows. Nah, we'd be too famous for that. Besides, I'd be busy warming up my arm for the game. The only thing you warm on the bench is your rear, I said. Ha ha. Keep that up and I won't get you any free tickets to my games or my concerts. It felt pretty good just to be kidding around about stupid stuff. Then, off in the distance, we saw a huge piece of zigzagging lightning that looked as if it almost hit the ground. Wow, Robbie yelled. Did you see that one? Yeah, I answered. I think that one was the biggest of all. There were more thunder and lightning blasts, but nothing like the huge one. Robbie and I joked as we continued to conduct our band. Hey, turn up the volume again. Then way off in the distance, I saw it. Geez, I half whispered, pointing ahead and to the right. That big lightning a few minutes ago, I think it started a fire. Robbie's eyes opened real wide as he looked in the direction I was pointing. Then another blast of thunder and bolt of lightning filled the sky, and we both jumped. I guess the dry desert must have been feeding the fire fast because as we stared at the orange speck, it kept growing into a brighter ball of orange, and a line of smoke wound across the sky. I drummed my fingers on the steering wheel and began to worry. If the thunder was louder than loud here, and the lightning was brighter and longer here than anywhere else, maybe fire traveled faster than it did anywhere else. I didn't think it could get to us. We were really far from it, but then I'd heard about how desert fires could burn hundreds of acres, and I had no idea how many acres we were from the fire. I tried to think, but I absolutely couldn't think of anything we could do if the fire came our way. We couldn't outrun it, that was for sure. Our car wouldn't work, and no one else was there. So I decided that all we could do was hope that the fire burned itself out long before it got to us. That wasn't very comforting. We had hours to sit there before morning. The desert was always really dry in the summer. Why should the fire burn out before it got to us? Wow, look at all that smoke in the sky, Robbie exclaimed. And then I felt a glimmer of hope. Smoke, like smoke signals. Like someone had to come and fight the fire, didn't they? I tried to think if firemen only fought fires in the city, but I didn't think so. I knew they fought them in forests. I'd seen it on a TV movie, so they must fight them in the desert too. The smoke in the sky would bring firefighters, and then we'd be rescued. I turned to Robbie. Boy, isn't that fire great? Great? He said questioningly. Yeah, I think it's going to get us rescued. The fire's going to get us rescued. Yeah, I explained to Robbie what I meant. Cool, he said. Then we could ride back to Phoenix in a fire truck. Boy, in one day I will have done more stuff than most kids get to do ever. When I get back to school this fall and everyone asks me about what I did during the summer, they'll have to give me the whole school year to describe it. Suddenly the wind began to blow real hard. Little loose rocks and grains of sand hurled through the air. I turned on the motor and rolled the windows up fast. Even with the windows up, I could still feel a sort of gritty sandiness inside the car. Palo Verde trees swayed so hard that it seemed as if they might break, and other pieces of desert plants swirled past them. Soon it was so dusty that it was impossible to see much of anything through the windows. I don't think the wind could possibly blow hard enough to knock the car over, but I wasn't absolutely sure of anything more. I knew one thing. Wind was certainly going to spread the fire fast. That could make the fire even more visible and bring help faster, or it could mean that no help was coming before we were part of the fire. There was a loud thud on the car's roof. What was that? Robbie called. He clapped his hand across his mouth and whispered, Do you think there's an animal walking on our car? Then there was another thud and another. It didn't really sound like an animal. It almost sounded like... I looked out the window. Robbie, get up off the floor of the car. It's raining. That's rain you hear. Those have to be the biggest drops I've ever seen. The feeling of grittiness went away as the rain pounded the car. I'd heard the saying about rain coming down in sheets, but I'd never understood it until now. It was so heavy and so thick that you could barely see out the window. It didn't even look like raindrops, just like someone had turned on a giant waterfall. Only a few minutes ago, the desert had seemed to stretch out forever, and now we could only see a few inches beyond the car window. The sounds of rain banged on our car loudly. It sort of felt like we were in a car wash and we'd gotten stuck in it. The rain was so loud that neither of us said anything. All of a sudden, I felt myself shiver. This was crazy. It had been so hot out, and now I was shivering. I didn't know why. I mean, it wasn't that cold in the car, but I looked at Robbie and he was shivering too. His baseball hat was pulled down low and I could barely see his face. You okay? I practically had to sit right next to him and shout to make myself heard. He didn't answer, or if he did, I didn't hear him. Finally, he looked up at me, and I could see that his eyes were red. It was too noisy to hear if he was crying, but I could see him sighing deeply. Well, he shouted in my ear, at least we won't burn up in the fire. I'd almost forgotten about the fire. We hadn't been able to see it or anything else for that matter for quite a while, but I was sure Robbie was right. No fire could withstand this kind of downpour. We could forget about being rescued by any firemen. I tried to make myself feel better by telling myself that even if the fire had burned for longer, and even if the firemen had come to put it out, we really were much too far from it to have ever expected them to find us. Thunder banged and boomed. It felt like the whole desert was shaking. Lightning cracked the sky and the rain kept pummeling down. At last the rain slowed from sheets that you couldn't see through at all to just a normal heavy rainstorm. No wonder people got caught in flash floods. If our car had been in an indented area, it definitely would have been in a river by now. Well, I said as much to myself as to Robbie. At least we're not going to get caught in any flash floods. How do you know for sure? Came Robbie's quiet voice. Because with as much rain as was out there, we'd have already been in one. I put my head back on the seat and closed my eyes. It was almost nice to listen to the rain, enjoy the cooler temperature, and not worry about any other immediate danger. It was going to be a long, hot, horrible walk tomorrow. We might as well try to enjoy tonight. What are you doing? Robbie looked at me. Are you sick or something now? No, just relaxing. You ought to try it too, while you can. The rain danced gently on the roof, and I was almost lulled to sleep, but something kept bothering me. I couldn't think what it was. I decided that maybe if I quit trying to think about anything, it would pop back into my mind. I stretched a little to make myself more comfortable, and when I put my hand down, it hit something. I opened my eyes to look at it and saw the half-empty gulper next to me. That was it. Get water while I could. I remembered my scout leader lecturing us before a hike that the greatest danger in the desert was lack of water. Well, here was plenty of water. I just had to get out of the car and get it. Robbie, find me all the gulpers and hurry. I figured with our luck, just as I'd get organized, the rain would stop. Why do you want them? I already found them once, but we put them back under the seat somewhere. I thought we were going to save them until tomorrow. Let's just get them then. I'm too tired to start climbing around the car. No, we need them right now. I started to look for them myself. It was easier than arguing. Robbie shook his head, looked at me as if I were nuts, and pulled a gulper from under one of the seats. Soon I had all four in front of me. Take another big drink from one of them right now. But I'm not even thirsty. I pushed a gulper toward Robbie. It doesn't matter. We've got to keep drinking stuff. I want to get more liquid in us now so I can fill this with water for tomorrow. He drank a few sips. I can't. It's going to make me puke. I knew what Robbie meant. Putting the gulper to my own lips, I tasted the sticky, sweet, warm root beer, and I promised myself that once we were out of there, I would never, ever drink root beer again. Yuck. How could I ever have this stuff was good? How could I ever have thought this stuff was good? Still, I forced myself to drink as much of it as I could. Then I opened all the gulpers very carefully and poured one into another until I had 2 full gulpers and 2 empty ones. The rain was coming down heavily, but it wasn't terrible, and the sky was actually beginning to get lighter. I opened the car door. Where are you going? There was panic in Robbie's voice. I'm just going to get these full of water. I'll be right back. Okay, said Robbie. Robbie said to my departing back. But stay where I can see you, just in case you need help or something. Right, I said. I'll yell if I need anything. I closed the car door and walked a few feet from the car, looking around for a place to wedge the gulpers so that they wouldn't fall over. A bolt of thunder crashed in the air, and I dropped one of the gulpers. Oh, no, I shouted to no one. I can't lose that. But even though I looked carefully in the semi-darkness, the gulper seemed to be gone. It must have wedged under a rock or something. I dropped down onto my hands and knees. The gulper had to be there somewhere. How could something bright yellow just disappear? Then I saw it under a bush. I crawled forward a little and grabbed it. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my knee. I looked down and saw blood coming from it. Geez, it hurt so bad. I wasn't sure if something had bitten me or what. I just wanted to get back to the car, but I knew I had to get the gulpers secured somewhere first. Finally, I wedged one into the space between two small cacti. I managed to scratch my right hand on the cactus needles, but the gulper didn't look as if rain or wind could knock it over. Then I saw 3 rocks and pushed them together against the other gulper. By now, even though the rain was not as heavy as it had been, I was pretty well drenched. My hand hurt and my knee throbbed, but at least we would have water tomorrow, and hopefully it would be enough. I opened the car door and fell onto the seat. Robbie, see if we have any Kleenex in the back. My knee was bleeding pretty hard, and the blood had started to run down my leg. It kind of made me sick to look at my own blood like that. I forced myself to touch the wound and felt a piece of something sharp. Robbie handed me the Kleenex, and I saw his eyes open real big as he looked at my leg. What happened out there? Nothing. I just cut my leg on a rock. It's no big deal. I pressed the Kleenex to the cut, and that made it hurt even worse. When I took it away, the blood stopped for a few seconds, and I could see a sharp piece of gray rock sticking in my leg. I knew it had to come out. I tried to put my fingers around the rock and pull, but it hurt so much to even touch the cut. I just couldn't make myself do it. Robbie, I need your help. Robbie looked at me warily. With what? You got to get this rock out of my knee. Robbie shook his head. Thanks, but no. It's too gross to reach into your blood. Robbie, I'm not doing it. I sighed deeply. My hand hurt. My knee was throbbing, but I knew when Robbie used that voice that he was not going to do what I wanted without a major fight, and I was too tired for that. What energy I had left had to go to getting the rock out. My knee had to work tomorrow if we were going to be able to walk out of the desert. I gritted my teeth and looked away as I pulled on the rock. Ah! I screamed, but the rock was still in my knee, and I had caused blood to start flowing faster than ever. I watched it slide down my leg and onto the beige carpet. I started to reach toward my knee again. I was breathing real hard, and I thought I might puke when Robbie called, Wait, doesn't Mom keep a first aid kit in the glove compartment? How will that help? I said with irritation. Robbie didn't answer. He reached in and pulled out a little white and blue box with a red cross on the top. Inside were bandages and Bactine and a small tweezers. Robbie handed me the tweezers. Maybe this will make it easier. I'm sorry, Scott. I know it must hurt, but I just can't do it. I took a deep breath and forced myself to reach toward my knee again. This time the tweezers hung onto the rock and pulled it out. I brought it close to my face, and in the duskiness, I could see how sharp it was, almost like an arrow. Now all of a sudden, Robbie wanted to help. He sprayed so much Bactine on my knee that it was running down my leg and over my shorts. Boy, he said, examining the cut, that was a lot of blood from such a little cut. Then Robbie sprayed Bactine on my hand and almost got it in my eyes. He started undoing about 5 Band-Aids. That's okay, I stopped him. But I thought you wanted me to help. I took over and finished covering my knee wound. I was exhausted. My head hurt, my knee hurt, and my hand hurt. But I didn't complain because there was no one to make any of it feel better. I kept thinking of my scout leader. Be prepared, he had always said. But how could anyone be prepared for what we had gone through today? Never give up, my scout leader had said. There's a solution to almost every crisis, if you just keep thinking. Well, I can't think anymore, I said almost defiantly. I took off my sopping wet t-shirt and threw it in the back seat. Now, if I could just get those soggy shoes and soaked socks off, too. I bent down to try to untie one basketball shoe, and I finally pulled out one foot. Then, holding the basketball shoe for a minute, I got an idea. Give me your shoes. My shoes? For what? I'm going to stick them outside the car and let them fill up with water. Have you gone nuts? No, and I'm not kidding. Come on, off with your shoes. Robbie held up his fists. I'm not letting you fill my shoes with water. No way. I sighed. Robbie, we need to have as much water as we can tomorrow. Well, I'm not using any water from inside my shoes. Thanks, but I'll pass. I like using glasses to drink from. I could feel my voice rising angrily. Robbie, I'd like to be drinking from a glass too. Matter of fact, I'd like to be in the living room right now watching Star Trek in the air conditioning. And I'd like to be eating a big bowl of chocolate ice cream or finishing a pepperoni pizza. Then I'd like to climb into my bed tonight And I'd like to have some ice to put on my knee, but I don't think I'm going to get any of that. Do you?" Robbie didn't answer, and the frustration of the day kept me yelling at him. "Don't you see that we could die out here without water? We don't have any glasses. The only thing I can see that will hold water is our shoes. Pretty soon, the rain may stop, and then it will be too late. That's why you're going to gladly give me your shoes right now, or so help me, I'll rip them off your feet."